Hello everyone, in this video I'll be translating and summarizing the latest Urdu broadcast by Moeed Pirzada to make it accessible for our English-speaking audience. Let's go through the key developments and insights in Moeed Pirzada's words. There are numerous developments in front of me related not only to Pakistan but also to India, and even to the dynamics between India and the United States. There are also developments connected to Afghanistan, especially the aftermath of the earthquake. Furthermore, there is a shift happening in China through the Shanghai Cooperation Organization, along with global leadership taking shape under the One China policy. Over the past 24 to 48 hours, I released 2 long-form interviews. One was in Urdu with the renowned Pakistani intellectual and scholar, Mr. Harun Rashid. The second was in English, with Professor Steve Hanker, a well-known economist at Johns Hopkins University in America. I would request you to watch both interviews and, along with them, I'll share some comments. For instance, in my interaction with Mr. Harun Rashid, there was a major objection raised by Pakistan's military officers. Their objection was that Mr. Harun Rashid, in a very innocent manner, stated that General Kayani's extensions were imposed by the government. He said that President Zardari had forced Kayani to take the extension. However, senior military officers in Pakistan argue that General Kayani, along with Michael Mullen, had worked hard to secure his extension. They claim that Kayani very much wanted the extension. President Obama played a role in this, and Steve Coll, an American author, has extensively discussed this matter in his book. I'll talk about this further, and I plan to interview Steve Coll as well. As of now, Pakistan is facing disastrous floods, and the question arises, is the flood a greater punishment from Allah, or is it a result of the selfish and hypocritical rulers of Pakistan? On 1st September, the Indian High Commission issued another alert, warning of severe floods in areas like Hakia and Firozpur, which are moving toward Pakistan. Afterward, the Punjab Disaster Management Authority, or PDMA, issued a notification stating that there is a significant risk to various areas of Punjab, particularly concerning urban flooding due to rainfall within Punjab itself. Lahore, Gujranwala and Gujarat are all at risk. Sindh's Chief Minister Murad Ali Shah has warned that the water from rivers like Chenab, Sutlej and Ravi, flowing from the north, will converge by the 2nd of September. After this, it will take about 2 more days to reach Sindh, where severe flooding is expected. Islamabad is also facing heavy rains, and the Deputy Commissioner of the area has warned of a high flood risk. When we observe the media coverage and social media reports in Pakistan, 2 aspects come to the forefront. One is the helplessness and suffering of the people, how distressed they are, and the kinds of destruction they are facing. The second aspect is the incompetence of the rulers and their selfishness. However, there is one critical discussion that is rarely held and which seems unfeasible in a reactive mindset. The government and administration in Pakistan have no plans or strategies to handle natural disasters. These calamities are always treated as sudden, unpredictable events, and there's never any comprehensive planning for the future. There is no long-term discussion on what should be done in such cases. Interestingly, the Pakistani Defence Minister, Khawaja Asif, recently made a speech in the National Assembly about this issue. He said, in a rare moment of realization, that the floods and the destruction they bring are largely man-made disasters. He pointed out that while floods will always come, Pakistan has made no preparations to deal with them. Whenever such a catastrophe strikes, Pakistan appeals to international organizations and countries, but it has learned nothing from these floods over the years. Khawaja Asif further emphasized that not only should large dams be built, but small dams and water reservoirs are equally necessary. Listening to him, one would think that he is new to power, but in reality, Khawaja Asif, along with his party, PMLN, has been a major part of the political leadership in Pakistan since the 1980s. The most striking thing, however, is that the PMLN has been in power multiple times, and Khawaja Asif himself is part of the power structure, even though his statements now seem like a sudden awareness of Pakistan's governance weaknesses. The political history of Pakistan, from 1970 to the present, has mostly been shaped by 2 parties, the Pakistan People's Party and the Pakistan Muslim League Nawaz. For the past 30 years, these parties have alternated in power, while Pakistan Tehreek-e-Insaf only came to power in 2018. And after almost 4 years, it was ousted through conspiracies. In his speech, Khawaja Asif gave an example of people building hotels and restaurants on rivers in Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. Interestingly, Khawaja Asif didn't mention the housing societies run by Alim Khan in Lahore. which is currently a topic of heavy discussion on social media. The corruption scenes involving Mariam Nawaz and her deputy commissioners in Punjab have also made headlines. During the past 24 to 36 hours, when Mariam Nawaz arrived in Punjab, orders were given to remove banners of political parties and organisations from flood relief camps to prevent them from gaining visibility. The same message was shared by Sheikh Waqas Akram, a leader of PTI, who made a heartbreaking tweet, which, well, I will show on your screen. In his tweet, he claimed that everyone knew what was happening. Police officers and deputy commissioners are fully aware of the situation, but they have no idea what people think about them. Now, I'll share a story about an interview I had with Mr. Harun Rashid. Before the interview, Mr. Harun Rashid kept calling me, and eventually I spoke to him. He pointed out that the Pakistani-American diaspora has not been providing enough help in the flood crisis. He suggested that they should contribute. However, I told him that, considering the current circumstances, I don't think any significant mobilization from the diaspora would be possible. This is because over the past 2 to 2.5 years, the current regime has done everything it can to isolate and insult the Pakistani diaspora. The way they were treated, denied the right to vote and subjected to contempt, makes it unlikely that they would come forward to help in such a situation. Mr. Harun Rashid disagreed, arguing that this is a humanitarian issue and the diaspora should contribute. But regardless of whether the issue is humanitarian or not, a proper mechanism is needed to mobilize resources effectively. For instance, Mariam Nawaz's deputy commissioners in Punjab have been involved in all sorts of dramatics, such as removing the banners of opposition parties from the relief camps just to please their government. Let me now share an example from Gujarat. The deputy commissioner there issued a notification that no other organizations without permission can distribute food in flood-affected areas because the quality of food must be checked first. Now ask yourself, in a country like Pakistan where incompetence runs deep, can a deputy commissioner actually check the quality of food? The intention behind these restrictions is clear: to prevent any other party or organization from doing relief work and taking credit for it. Meanwhile, in a very contrasting scene, a deputy commissioner in another area of Punjab, possibly Muzaffarnagar, was seen wearing a suit and tie during a flood relief operation, trying to portray the image of him being a hero. However, the fact that he wore a wireless microphone during the operation made it evident that the whole thing was for a publicity stunt, likely for Mariam Nawaz to show her government's efficiency. So, these two contrasting examples, one where the deputy commissioner restricts NGOs from providing help, and the other where a deputy commissioner is shown as a hero, participating in relief work, reveal the real motives behind these actions. Both of them are just performing for the sake of their political bosses. When senior civil servants speak about the collapse of the civil service, they often lament how the standard of governance has fallen. However, the real issue isn't that the civil service failed, but that the system of governance in Pakistan has changed drastically. The deputy commissioners of the British era were accountable to the Viceroy of India and followed a very different governance structure. The value system in Pakistan, however, is rooted in feudal traditions, and that's the system we are seeing reflected in the behaviour of the ruling elite today. The drama you see in areas like Gujarat and Muzaffarnagar only reflects this feudal mindset. In the midst of a crisis, it's not about real governance or relief, it's about showing off and securing political power. They believed that the reason for the rebellion of 1857, which is often referred to as the First War of Indian Independence, was due to the fact that the East India Company was not providing good governance. The East India Company was not governing well, there was corruption, and there was poor service delivery. To address this, they established a framework for civil services in India. This is what they say about the civil servants, those who take academy exams like CSS, DMG, or whatever. The primary purpose of training these individuals is not to engage in such dramas where they go to the streets to show people how much humanity or kindness they have within themselves. This institution was created for the purpose of visioning, planning and implementing that vision. It required civil servants to make proposals to the governments through report writing and argumentation. They forced the governments to act. In the assembly, small and large figures, like Khawaja Asif, would cry out that we need small and large dams, we need to build spillways, we need to set up branches, we need to prepare for the upcoming floods. When floods come, they affect the groundwater table. For example, the water table in Lahore used to be at a height of 30 to 40 feet. Now it's probably over 100 feet deep. If proper preparations were made beforehand, like creating deep wells, you could raise the water table. This was the civil servants' responsibility, to present proposals to the governments. For instance, Pakistan needed a River Act, which would regulate the courses of rivers, their beds, and prevent unauthorized planning along these areas. Communities or settlements should not be allowed to settle along the riverbeds. When Alim Khan Sahib created a settlement, it became a mess. But it wasn't just Alim Khan's fault. This kind of uncontrolled settlement occurred across Pakistan, particularly along the river courses. The ultimate responsibility for this lay with the civil servants, as there were no local governments in Pakistan. It was their duty to create housing policies. Moving forward, let's look at the situation in Afghanistan. On the night between Sunday and Monday, an earthquake hit Afghanistan. As per the confirmed reports so far, at least 800 people have lost their lives and over 2,500 have been injured. Many analyses suggest that the death toll may increase significantly, and there are very distressing scenes coming from Afghanistan, especially of children, women and the elderly. This disaster is compounded because this area, near the Pakistan border where this tragedy occurred, is home to over 1 million Afghan refugees. These refugees were forcibly expelled from Pakistan and Iran in the past few months and are now left homeless. They are the ones who have suffered the most from this earthquake. Taliban spokesperson Zabihullah Mujahid has called for international aid. Fortunately, the American forces, before leaving Afghanistan, left behind several helicopters which the Afghan Taliban are now using. Normally, retreating forces destroy their equipment, but in this case they did not. These helicopters are crucial for logistical operations in such disasters. I remember when Pakistan's earthquake happened in 2005, the American forces had heavy-lift helicopters, which they used to help the Pakistani government during the earthquake in Azad Kashmir and KPK. Similarly, in 2010, when General Kayani asked for American help during the floods, the American army helped Pakistan a lot because they had these helicopters. Now let's look at China, where at the Shanghai Cooperation Organization Summit, China made a strong global statement. President Xi Jinping presented his vision to the world, which he called the Global Governance Index. China's foreign policy emphasizes its stance against terrorism and extremism. It advocates for multilateralism and strongly opposes the use of drugs, as China has been accused of being a major source for fentanyl. The one thing that is missing from China's global vision, however, is human rights. Although the state of human rights in China is better than in many places with poor governance, overall, China follows an authoritarian regime. For example, in Xinjiang, there has been severe oppression of the Muslim population, and China does not discuss human rights. Similarly, China never talks about democracy because, as a non-democratic country itself, it cannot. However, the governance standards in China, when compared to places like Pakistan, are much better in some aspects. For instance, the Chinese Communist Party's representation is felt at the ground level. Still, China's global image is tainted by its lack of focus on human rights and democracy, which weakens its argument on the international stage. Now, the recent SCO resolution condemning terrorism, including incidents in Pahalgam, Kushtar and the Jaffa Express, has been highly praised in the Pakistani press. This is significant because just a few weeks ago, when the SCO foreign ministers gathered, no joint resolution could be passed as India had objections regarding Pahalgam. However, the consensus has now emerged that all forms of terrorism should be condemned. Now let's discuss the current situation between India and China. Donald Trump, who has an ego battle with India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi, tweeted recently on Truth Social, stating that India has offered to remove duties on American exports. However, this is not new. We've known for some time that India has been offering zero duties on American exports. Trump remarked that this is too little, too late. The perception is that there is a lot of business between the US and India, but in reality, India has been the one doing business with the US, while the US has not been able to do business with India due to high duties on Indian goods. Trump's advisor on international trade, Peter Navarro, who has been disliked by many in India, recently stated that it would be easy for India to stop purchasing Russian oil, which would remove the 25% duties imposed by the US on Indian imports. However, reports suggest that India's purchase of Russian oil will actually increase in the coming weeks rather than decrease. This shows that India is not willing to surrender to Trump or the US in any way. Interestingly, the Wall Street Journal recently published a significant story, claiming that while the majority of Indian exporters are facing punitive measures due to high US duties, the Reliance Group, which buys a third of its oil from Russia, is not affected by these tariffs. The journal speculated that Mukesh Ambani has very strong ties with the US elite, including people like Mark Zuckerberg and Sundar Pichai, and he likely has financial interests that shield him from the impact of these tariffs. This has led to speculation that Ambani's ties with the US political and business elite allow him to remain unaffected by US policies. In contrast, there have been reports of US efforts to punish India in various ways. One of the latest developments is the possible imposition of stricter visa rules for Indian students and professionals. There are reports suggesting that the US may change the rules for H-1B and F-1 visas, which would affect Indian students and professionals the most. Professor Steve Hanker, whom I interviewed, mentioned that the US Department of Defense seems to be shifting its focus from India to Pakistan. This shift in defense policy is being welcomed in Pakistan, but it remains unclear whether such a shift is affordable for the US. In conclusion, while India and the US may have disagreements, they are both deeply reliant on each other. Ultimately, India will likely have to make some concessions and the US may change its approach as well. However, the situation remains fluid, and we'll have to wait and see how things unfold in the coming months. That wraps up our translation of Moeed Pirzada's video. I hope this English version helped you understand his message better. Please like, share and subscribe to Awami Lens to help our community grow. Don't forget to leave a comment below and let me know what you thought of this effort.